I became a mom at a very young age, and as a result, being a caregiver has always been a part of how I operate and engage with my world. I also believe that having my son activated some part of my DNA that's led me to persist in achieving my goals, no matter how many obstacles were thrown in my way. And I've had my fair share. I've also had to encounter different stereotypes and challenges at different points of my education and my career, hearing things like, are you sure you want to take on that project when you have a son at home? Or even being steered away from more challenging assignments because of the fact that I have these other responsibilities. One instance has really stuck with me in particular. When I was applying for graduate schools to get my doctorate, I wrote all about how being a young mom had helped me develop skills that would allow me to get through such a rigorous program. And I was ultimately advised to take that piece out because it could lead to the perception that I would be less committed or even less capable of getting through that type of program, given the fact that I had these family responsibilities. I did, luckily, get into graduate school, and I did also end up listening and taking that piece out. So now, we'll never really know what would have happened if I had left it in, but what I do know is that this led me down a path where I developed a passion to really understand why women are given this type of advice early in their careers, and also I wanted to just understand what these unique experiences mean for a woman's career trajectory. Now, as an organizational psychologist and a leadership coach, I have the privilege of working with business leaders on a daily basis. In fact, last year my firm had nearly 100 clients, and we partnered with each of them to help select and develop really strong leaders and build organizational cultures that drive business results. As you might expect, we also have a lot of really consultancy opinions about what it takes to thrive as an organization, and specifically, what might happen that would cause an organization to fail. Let me give you one example. We worked with a large, very technically oriented company that came to us because they had some leadership issues. For over 30 years, they had been hiring and promoting people based almost solely on technical expertise and intelligence. And when you walked around their organization, you could feel this. Everyone that you met was incredibly bright, highly capable, but at the same time, they were very uniform. Most individuals in their organization had similar backgrounds, similar education, similar experiences. And their leadership team in particular was all men, and they were all about to retire at the same time. At the same time that this was all occurring and they came to us, they realized that their business model was under attack. Their industry that they worked in was facing intense disruption, and they were losing money as a result of it. So they knew that in order to really survive, they had to pivot and innovate. So essentially, and this is reducing some complex work, but essentially they were faced with two issues. The first was that they lacked gender diversity and diversity of thought in their whole organization. And especially that was concentrated in the leadership team. And secondly, they had a leadership team that was all about to retire, and they didn't have a bench of leaders in place to succeed them and take those positions. So we came on board and we ultimately helped them first develop a woman that we found in the organization that, like many others, had risen to the top, to the role that she was in because of her technical skills. But she was differentiated from many others because of the fact that she also was showing some really good leadership capabilities. She was developing a followership in the organization, people were wanting to come work for her, and perhaps more importantly, and to her surprise, she was also viewed as a role model. So people were watching her, looking up to her, they wanted to see what she was going to do. She ultimately was promoted into the senior leadership team, and we were asked to help coach her through that tough transition. Once she was on board, the team now from the outside looking in appeared to be more diverse. They had a woman on the team, it looked like a positive. But that was really when the real tough, challenging work began. And for us on the inside, helping her through this, we saw it firsthand. Her transition was rough and bumpy. The rest of the team had been together for a while. They knew how to have their meetings. Their decisions were relatively easy because they knew what to expect from one another. And when she came on board, she shook things up. She challenged them. She brought different experiences. Even though she had similar technical skills, she just thought in a different way. And so it took a long time for the team to really find their groove. At the same time, the organization was restructuring their entire selection system. They realized that they were actually weeding women out really early on in the process because of the interview protocol they had used for so many years. So it's not that they were lacking ambitious and capable women that were applying for roles there, but they were simply not meeting the hurdles of the system itself. So now, a couple years later, with these projects and the different changes that this organization made, the organization looks and feels different. Now, it's not to say that there's not more work to be done. There certainly is, and they're committed to this. But you look at them now, and not only do they have more gender diversity, they have a couple of more women on their senior team as well. And perhaps most importantly, they're no longer trying to survive, they're actually starting to thrive. This example, and many others that I've had in my consulting work, made me start to really pay close attention to that link between gender diversity in organizations and their ability to really function and thrive. Anecdotally, I've seen several examples of how this happens, but the psychologist and the researcher in me really needed to dig deeper. I needed that evidence to show that this was actually indeed something that was worth studying. In their Diversity Matters report, McKinsey & Company found that gender-diverse organizations are much more profitable and successful compared to their non-gender diverse counterparts. Gender-diverse organizations also are seen more positively in the public eye, and they have a stronger public image, which means that they can better attract and retain top talent in their fields. In addition, they are more agile. Because of the fact that people bring these various experiences and different expertise, they're able to adapt in the face of complex and constantly changing business demands, and they're able to innovate much more quickly than other organizations are as well. And lastly, something that's certainly important to me, they have more family-friendly cultures. When women have a seat at the table, they're able to influence decisions about things that make organizations more attractive to men and women, parents alike. Parents that are looking to not only have a career, but also to pay attention and be a part of their families as well. Now, the problem is, most organizations cannot reap these benefits because women continue to be drastically underrepresented in leadership roles. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recently reported that 50% of our current workforce is women. Yet leadership roles continue to be held, vast majority of them continue to be held by men in business and in politics. Let me break down some statistics for you to illustrate. So at middle management roles in organizations, 50% of those positions are held by women. Then when you go up to director level positions, only 16% of those positions are held by women. And at the very top, in the C-suite, where most decisions are being made and policies are being decided upon, a mere 5% of those roles are held by women. So if we had an average of C-suite executives in this room with us right now, 100 of them, 5 would be women and 95 would be men. So it's no surprise that organizations aren't able to capitalize on some of those benefits. Hearing these statistics, combining it with some of the experiences that I've had, led me to create the Female Leaders Edge, which is a blog and a social media platform where I share insights and resources and knowledge to really help continue to drive progress toward gender parity. And I was really surprised in a positive way to see that there's thousands and thousands of other women, men, and organizations out there doing this same work, really pouring themselves into this issue and trying to put resources there so that we can remedy the problem. Yet still, progress is stalled and the problem persists. There's many explanations as to why this might be. It certainly depends on who you're talking to. But one of them is rooted in stereotyping. Alice Agley, Susan Fisk, Peter Glick, and Amy Cuddy are psychologists, among others, that have found evidence for the existence of certain gender stereotypes. Essentially, women are expected to be warm and kind and caring, and men are expected to be ambitious and assertive and bold. Now, the expectations themselves aren't necessarily an issue, but when we unconsciously use these expectations to make decisions, that's when they start to become a problem. For women in particular, this results in what's known as the double bind. Essentially, when women behave as expected, warm and kind and caring, they're viewed as likable, but not quite as competent and not leader-like based on current standards. And when women engage in counter-stereotypic behaviors, ambitious, assertive, bold, they lose that likability, they gain competence, but they're also viewed as a threat. As Catalyst says, this puts women in a position where they are damned if they do and doomed if they don't. So there's an issue here, again, that we need to continue talking about. And some of you might be thinking, this isn't news, right? This isn't new. The stereotyping and the double bind, we've been talking about this for quite some time. In fact, if you go do a quick search on Google, you're going to come up with hundreds and thousands of articles on this topic, entire books. Yet, the gender stereotypes that we're talking about here are still alive and well. In fact, as recently as 2018, the Pew Research Center found that certain words that we used to traditionally associate with men and women are still associated in the same way. For example, the word powerful is perceived as a positive for men and a negative for women. The word compassionate is the opposite. It's viewed as a negative for men and a positive for women. Now, we know that in today's day and age and into the future, we need leaders that are both powerful and compassionate. Powerful enough to make decisions, set direction, and lead their companies through challenging and turbulent times. And compassionate enough to lead people and develop teams. But if the word man is still viewed as not fitting with the word compassion, and woman is not seen as fitting with the word powerful, then we still have a lot of work to do. I want to say that it's important for us to note that we should all be a part of this conversation as well. This isn't just a women's issue. There truly is a business case for gender diversity. And so we should all be a part of this conversation and the action that it takes to drive things forward. Now, I want to also be clear that this is not easy work. I'm not saying that we just flip a switch and all of a sudden we have these gender diverse organizations. In fact, this is really tough, challenging work that we need to pour a lot of time into, and importantly, not just talk about, but truly be committed to. So I'm going to leave you with 3 actions that we can all take now moving forward and encourage others to do as well. The first is at the individual level. I would encourage everyone to continue to challenge your own assumptions and think really deeply about what biases you might hold that could guide your decisions. When it comes to talent and leadership, we also have to think unconventionally. We can't just go to the first place where we think we're going to find a potential leader. We have to think outside the box, get creative. Second, men are 46% more likely to have a senior level sponsor or advocate in their organization than women are. Alice Agley and Linda Carley are 2 psychologists that found that the power of our networks, and specifically if you have influential leaders in your network, are that much more predictive of promotion and being able to be promoted into a role than job performance. So we also need to sponsor women. And I'm not saying not to sponsor men by any means. I'm saying that if you're in the position to sponsor someone, look for a diverse group of individuals that you can provide some support and resources to. Again, think unconventionally about who might have some leadership potential. And lastly, we have a responsibility to continue to create gender-inclusive organizations. And we can do this through really taking a good hard look at our selection systems and our performance metrics. How are people being assessed? We can also continue to create family-friendly cultures, offering things like maternity and paternity leave, flexible working arrangements, and also using results-based performance systems. Change is hard, change takes time, and importantly, change takes collective effort on the part of people that are willing to not only do the work, but inspire and motivate others to do the same. Collectively, I'd say that we have the power to hold each other accountable to creating gender diverse organizations, teams, and cultures. So I'll just leave you by saying, join me and let's get to work.